today because we don't really do this, but Aaron, actually, Captain Aaron. General. Captain. Hey, you floating this battleship today.
Yeah.
Okay, no, it's a starship.
So I just want to say hi to everyone back in Joburg. I'll be your cameraman for today. Sweet, hope you enjoy it.
So that's Aaron, Captain Aaron. And, well, we've got a wonderful afternoon ahead of us. I hope we're going to do some wonderful things to see. And I hope you're going to interact with me this afternoon. Send in some emails, questions, comments. Actually, comments go to a different address if you have any technical comments. But anything regarding wildlife and the animals and anything regarding Africa, please send them to wildearth.tv. And if there are any comments, send them to, what is it? Drive comments. People got drive feedback. No, it's drive feedback. I'm really joking. Drive feedback at wildearth.tv. Now we are just outside camp. I'm actually going to turn around. I was parked maybe some impala here. There was a bachelor herd of impala rams, and there were a few nyala with them, with a bit of an identity crisis, and they moved off deeper into. Yeah, I guess because the wind's coming from behind, so that microphone is blowing out of it. Well, that's fine. We're going to turn around and go the other way. And we're going to start off by looking for those elephants from this morning. We need to go and find them. And then we're just going to head north and we hope we're going to find something else. But too often the cameraman just sits at the back and waves, and we don't really get to see who the cameraman is, and then we get emails saying, who's on camera, because it doesn't look like Brian, and it doesn't look like... Jigga, we're going on a drive now, don't play up, we're going on a drive, so please just... I said please, I really did say please. This was just a usual thing. What happens is we start it up and then we took a look at the fuel injection needs time to sort itself out. It was one of those times when BMW owned Land Rover and they put a BMW engine in it. It would never have happened with a Land Rover engine. She'll do it. Just patience. Leave it for a minute. There we go. No, catch. Okay. It's gonna happen soon. Almost. So that flower this morning. that is Chironia prunescens. A lovely purple flower. I think it was a Chironia. Come Jigger, we've got to go for a drive, we've got to go find elephants. I also have to tell you, she's a little tired because she had to pull a Land Cruiser. Please note, Land Cruiser, Toyota Land Cruiser, out of the riverbed this morning. So proud of her. No, I just have to leave it. It's a phenomenon that dates back to the early days of the Jigger. If we started it and we just drove a little bit and then switched off, she would do that. I'm being very nice to her and talking nicely. Come on, Jigger. It's coming. Of course, this is all for TV, so it's all a joke, really, because actually it does start. I'm just teasing. He says trying to start it for the umpteenth time. So off we go. We've had elephants. Always nice, Brian. Always nice. Good Land Rover. Brand new Land Cruiser, long wheelbase. Tried to cross the river at Jigger Crossing. Some of you might know which is Jigger Crossing, because it's a crossing that only Jigger can cross. And it just so happened that, well, the Land Cruiser tried to get across, and of course it couldn't, because it's not the Jigger, it's not the Land Rover. And he got stuck, and we had to pull him out with this little car. So elephants have been around here quite a lot. They've been in camp for the last 3 nights straight almost, and I know they were down on this road somewhere, and I might just have to stop and move some trees and things out of the way, because I did come down here this morning and there wasn't really time to do it this morning, but I do need to clear this road. Yeah, there it is. They were feeding. But fortunately, I can turn this into a good thing, because I can show you a few things. Look at this. It's like I've flattened it with my Land Rover as well when I went to the gate earlier. So please excuse me, I'm about to go and clear the road. This is what happens when you live in Africa and you live with elephants. It's not only branches and things, you have to fix pipes that they pull up. I'll keep for educational purposes.
Education. Need some help. You need some help. What? Brian, come again. Sure, can't hear you there. Oh, jeez. Yeah, sorry, Brian, I can't hear you. Hey, the other radio's going off. Hold on, just hold on. The radio's still going off. Okay, go, Brian. Now I am.
Brian saying?
I just wanted me to film you being in the bush.
Oh,
But every time I spoke, if someone else came onto the radio.
Well, it was all good until that last piece, which was a piece of heavy buffalo thorn, as thin as it is. But buffalo thorn's got a lot of thorns, so I got a few punctures in my feet and hands, but they're used to that because I live here. But this is, if some of you are on drive this afternoon, you were with me this morning, we were talking about elephant and eating bark and the way that I believe that they farm with trees and their lives. And this is how unfit I am, clearing a few branches and I'm out of breath. But anyways, this is the roundleaf teak, and this is something that they're feeding on a lot these days. And if you look at this, you can see how the bark has been chewed off. He's broken it, or she has broken it off at the base, and they chew it all the way up the stem until they get to the leaves. And it's only the bark that they're after, and a little bit of the moisture in the stems. And the wonderful way in which this particular plant grows, sorry, that must have hit the mic, is that, well, here's a small tree here just in front of us. Small was a tree. That's on the left here now is a bunch of recoppiced roundleaf teak, and what they do is every time they break one of these stems off, the next season round, the teak itself will send out 2 or 3 shoots. So the more the elephants are actually feeding on the roundleaf teak, the more the roundleaf teak is producing these shoots for them to feed on, because they don't really like the bark. If you look at this semi-mature trunk of the two trunks of this tree here on my right, they don't touch the bark of the older trees. They only want these fresh branches that are long and straight to a certain point. Let me show you one. So they only really want that particular part of the roundleaf teak, that stem of the newer branches, and that's what most of this is down here. If I go a little bit forward, we got to that buffalo thorn that was being eaten. That's exactly, in fact it was probably the exact same elephant that did it. This morning we were watching a young female trying to get some bark off of a little buffalo thorn, almost exactly the same size as this one, and you can see just where it's been broken, you can see the bark that has been removed, and there's even a gouge mark from a tusk, that L-shaped gouge mark just above where the bark begins again, and that is where this particular elephant has been digging her tusk into the bark, trying to pry off bark. But being a buffalo thorn, the bark doesn't strip the same way as it does in some of the other trees. Further up that little trunk is more bark that's been stripped, and I believe it's only medicinal that they're using the buffalo thorn bark, because they don't often do that to buffalo thorn, very, very seldom in fact, and I believe it's only the one female that might need it for whatever reason she needs medicine, and I wish I could find that out, but my elephant vocabulary is limited, so even if they could tell me, I wouldn't really understand. So this is where they were. They've been around camp. They were back around camp last night. I found them this morning, if you weren't with us on drive this morning. And they were down at the river after we found them. And in fact, just before we found them, the land cruiser stuck in the sand in the river. Or rather, just before we got there, the guide in that land cruiser said that the elephants had been there with them. A wonderful young couple from Long Island, New York, on honeymoon. A nice chat while we were trying to extricate that vehicle. So what we'll do is we're going to head down towards the river on the southern side, and I'm going to follow a road, unfortunately into the sun for now. Although maybe we'll go east first, just to eliminate the eastern south bank of the river, and then we'll head along the western part of the south bank and see where these ellies might have gone. My guess is that they're probably in the river again. It's afternoon, it's been a hot day. They're going to be possibly at those pans in the west having a bit of a mud bath, and then in the river having a drink, and having fed a lot during the day on bark and roughage just to counterbalance all the reeds that they were feeding on yesterday. There's a strong likelihood that they're actually back in the river feeding on reeds And this is sort of a cyclical thing. Oops. That we're going to be seeing for the next few weeks, perhaps. What's that sound? So good. Okay. And actually, to be honest, I don't think these elephants have gone east. But maybe... No, I don't think so. Let's go west. What I want to do is find out where these elephants have actually crossed this road heading down south. I know that they were down at the owner's house, or close to the owner's house, at River Lodge at some point this morning. But first we'll go do a loop on what is known as Amakop Loop. Walking around. Cool. Human footprint. There you go. Some tracks there heading out to the river. The problem is these elephants spend so much time here nowadays that it's getting very difficult to identify which is which. I'm actually thinking that I'll go across the river now. We're going to have a look along the river first. If need be, we might come back. Let's take my famous figure crossing. I hope I don't have to eat my words. The only reason I say that is because this Land Cruiser got stuck down here. Kind of messed it up a little bit for us to cross because there's all sorts of rubbish there now. Logs and rocks and stones. Vervet monkey. Fortunately, the vervets and the baboons here are rather shy. We did get some baboons on camera the other day. Quite magical. It's going to be hard to get the vervets because they're so shy. This one that was here has gone. Yeah, I see there's all sorts of nonsense down here now. I'm going to just go and move that one piece of wood because I don't want that under my tires. So once again, excuse me a moment. I'm going to make sure that it's okay for us to cross again. You need to hold on quite a bit, steady, brace yourself because that little dip down there is quite, quite a little bit of a bump. I don't want your nose hitting the camera. Oh, there's kudu. Young kudu bulls. 2 kudu bulls. See if we can get past. No, they're running. That's it coming this way. Okay, all of you Land Cruiser people, that's how Land Rover does it. Challenge any Land Cruiser except maybe a short, no, not even a short. Oh, there's a fishy hook. But it's going in the land elsewhere. No, it's kudu are not here either. Okay. Head upstream and see if we can find these pachyderms to begin with. I've subsequently learned that the one old girl with the collapsed ear is actually the matriarch of the original herd, and her name was Flo, F-L-O, Flo. Okay, interesting pretty here. This one is difficult. Okay, I wasn't slow enough. Let me just get out of there, then we'll redo it. No, it's only that one that does this. Needed a new one anyway. But to tell you what that was all about is to be able to broadcast from this lovely little piece of Africa. We have an array of equipment and batteries and all sorts of things here on this vehicle. The vehicle's nickname is Jigger. We'll get to that for those of you who are new to our broadcast. To get to know what is happening here. We've got this antenna that sticks up at the back, and we've worked it out that at a certain tension level there's a certain cable tie or zip tie that breaks at that right tension point. So we keep it up with the cable tie. We've tried other mechanisms, but this seems to be the best, the one that works. And most of the time, right now, I can avoid the overhanging branches, but every now and then, and especially if we go off-road, it doesn't work. We need to unclip it. We're just putting it back together again. Jigger is called Jigger. Oh, what's up? Where's your mother? Oh, there she is. And the two new piglets. We had those same four on camera this morning. On the other side of the river, far away. They might have run up this road and then stopped, and then maybe we'll see them again. Yes, there they are on the road. That's Mom right up front. This is her daughter from about 2 years ago that's facing us. Maybe even 3 years ago. Quite a big young female there. What is that a challenge, Warthog? That's the way they work. Almost miss the one. I don't know if you can make it out, but I get this. There, that distracted line. I don't know if you can make it out, but there, that kind of hard line. The sun, but looking into the sun is the only way to. Kind of hard looking into the sun, but looking into the sun is the only way to be on the other side of it to read tracks. One of the reasons why we had to be on the other side of it, because if there are any elephant tracks, one of the reasons why across this drive, I'll see them very easily. But I have a feeling they're upriver somewhere.
Snake tracks, you said that?
Yeah, it's a snake, a pretty big snake too. Might be cobra. Difficult to tell. I think that I'd need another few lifetimes of tracking snakes to learn what this one would have been. Judging by the width of it and the weight and the movement, I'd say cobra or mamba, or maybe even a big wormsnake. It's a very distinct serpentine movement. I don't know if you'll be able to get this web here. Sadly, this silk that's glistening. I'll just go back a little bit. More of it. That's not the whole web. For all you arachnophobes out there, don't look now. No, I won't be able to show you the spider because she's hiding deep in this acacia. That's just the top of the web. It's a very special spider, and her name is a nursery web spider. She has a funnel that, from all of the scaffolding, the funnel that runs deep down to the base of this tree, the funnel of silk, and that's where she lives down there. Called a nursery web because when her eggs hatch, she keeps her egg case with her, and when the eggs hatch, she spins this nursery, she spins this almost like a cage of silk around them, and it's not so much that they can't get out, it's so that parasitic wasps and other insects can't get in to get to her babies. So she keeps them in a nursery for their first 2 or 3 molts. I think it's only 2 molts, 1 or 2 molts. So by the time they're going through their 3rd molt, they're big enough to go and make their own webs, and then they've got to grow for a season or so. And there's a few spiders that live more than a season. That's where the elephants went. Unfortunately not gone up there because the track's heading up. Africa, we are probably getting on to about 3:30 in the afternoon, Central African time. And if somebody was there this morning, they would have had elephant right in front of their room. In fact, there were people there this morning. They flew out, but I don't think we can zoom well enough.
Yeah.
But surely you can see the white. It's actually not a red tip, it's an orange tip. It's, believe it or not, looked red, but it looked like it. Oh, is that orange or red? The white, the butterfly is known as the white. She's gone, he's gone, it's a male. The male is the only one that's white with the colours on the end. We're on a Vernonia. Vernonia flower. I think we should go up that road, because then if we get them in this drainage side, they'll be on the west of us. Maybe we should, but that's such a long way around that drainage line. We'll go this way. I think the warthogs are showing us which way to go. So they're very easy to identify, the whites, because you get the purple tip and the red tip and the orange tip in terms of their common names. You can get the queen purple tip. They all belong to the genus Calotus. That might have been Calotus ianoni. Ianoni. So many subspecies. The butterflies have triple-barreled names, as opposed to just genus and species. Genus, species, and subspecies. Lotus hyerta sabrini. I think this was the maybe not. Where did I have those other cups? It was there with the warthog were. Oh no. I did, because I'm looking for tracks. I should have avoided that one. Excuse me, you want me to get out? Okay. Sorry. Broke the zip tie, cable tie.
See that too, man?
Ordinarily I'm quite vigilant about the branches overhanging the road. You know when I'm looking for tracks. I think there might have been some tracks there heading up. Let's head up that road. Go back down. Yeah. So far nothing else has been picked up in the reserve up north. We don't have any cats down south where we are at the moment. There's not a single track of a lion or a leopard. That is possibly because our wonderful female Malawan has been up in the northwest, or northwest of us. She went to towards Langwan Dam and she had a kill up there and they couldn't find her. After I spent 2 hours tracking her, I eventually had to leave that area. Take a look. The warthog were here. Let's see if there was anything that happened up this road. Always come down the next one. These are all roads that are north-south roads that head up to an east-west road that crosses it. And some of them run parallel to dry riverbeds that carry rainwater or excess rainwater for that matter into the Thornybush River, the main river that we crossed earlier. And it doesn't look like there are any tracks here. Looks like they might have been on that other road. Or they're still further west. that's not rhino. I mean, that's not elephant. No, there's no elephant tracks on this road, so we're going to have to move on and see. Mangwa. We're on this side of the drainage now, and this is Mangwa. And we're on this side of the drainage now. Up there. Tunkombi on Dombaya, leaving in an open lock. I think this is Dombaya, Thomas. I'm quite sure, but I can't stay with this lock. On Dombaya Road, heading down towards Umvole. You'll see where there were elephants in the road. They're just on the western side of the road. That's an interesting question, Marsha. In Kentucky, do elephants have any means of eliminating toxins if they eat? That's not good for them. Very interesting question. Because I don't know. Really, it's something I really don't know. And my guess is no, possibly not. My guess is that on account of their digestive system, something doesn't stay in their stomach long enough to be a problem with regards to toxins. We'll go down Mangawa and see if we can find this elephant down here. Oops. Because I didn't go anywhere further to the east up that other road called Dombaya. Dombaya is the name of the wild pear, and there are a number of them here, and I'm hoping that towards the end of our live drives they might just be coming into blossom. But of course they're getting dormant now. They're the first things to bloom in the bush, generally speaking. First really lovely flush of blossom. I think they're mostly called wild pear because the blossom looks like the pear blossom. It's got nothing to do with the pear fruit. I'll see if I can find you one. Nowhere near like the pear. And the blossoms are great. In fact, they call it the bride's bush because all those spring brides, flush of pale white, pale pink, and it's like confetti. One of the few that actually look like confetti. There's another tree called confetti bush. This one here on my left, in fact. This common spike thorn is also known as a confetti bush because it has beautiful little white flowers that are in confusion in the early months of spring, even late summer sometimes. They're tiny little flowers, and when they fall in great numbers it looks like confetti. And while I'm on this road, I might have passed it already, but I might be able to see that purple flower again. Because I had that purple flower from this morning was here somewhere on this road, amongst the lobelia. Just past the patch of lobelia on a seat line. There it is. That's the flower. And it was closed this morning, and now it's open, so I can get a better photograph. This purple one. And I have to do this. I have to get a better photograph. If anything but for showing. And me as well. Oh, it's pretty. I'll turn it to the camera. Yeah, that's good. Sitting amongst all this pale blue and white lobelia, and I think this is Caronia. I'm not sure, but I think it's Caronia. And if any of you are familiar with mythology and Greek mythology and legends, Chiron was actually the mythical centaur who lived in the forest that knew all about the plants and the herbs and medicines, and he taught Achilles. I think it was Achilles that apprenticed with Chiron. So at least I got a better photograph. And you all thought I was coming to look for elephants, and I wasn't. I was coming to look for a flower for the ladies. Because it wasn't open this morning, so I had to drive all this way to get it open again. Caronia. I am indeed. I don't deny it. Okay, well, throw them at me. Questions coming in. Gooi, meneer. Gooi. Laat wij. Oops. Did you choke, Brian? Are them Hi, Marsha. Marsha again. Are there tree squirrels out here and do they do any alarm calls? Yes and yes. No, depends on that question. Straight yes and yes. If you would like me to elaborate. Yes, we do have the yellow tree squirrel. And yes, they do have alarm calls. They have different alarm calls for different predators, because when they're making an alarm call, much like other creatures, it's important that it is understood where the alarm is, or what the alarm is for. It's important for animals to either look up for an eagle, or look down for a snake, or look for a leopard. And it's a very subtle difference in the call. We just haven't been able to see. I've had a few squirrels running in front of the vehicle from time to time, but unfortunately we just haven't been able to catch one on camera yet. But for you, Marsha, I will try my best. Well, it's going to be easy, maybe easy enough for me to find the squirrel. It's going to be up to Eric to catch it on camera. Or if not today, then Brian or whoever. Okay, the Tar Heel State, huh? Torah in the Tar Heel State of North Carolina. Or is it South Carolina? No, I'm sure it's North Carolina. Torah wants to know, is it dangerous walking barefoot? Charlotte in North Carolina. I'm trying to think, why is Charlotte sticking in my head? But nice to hear from you, Torah. And wonderful to hear from North Carolina. Please let me know, send another email. Am I right in saying that that's the Tar Heel State? Tar Heel, if you want an American accent. And no, it's dangerous. No, it's not really dangerous. The danger is stepping on thorns more than anything else. Bacteria, there's no bacteria to worry about. The bacteria I have to worry about is the infection I'm going to get when I get a thorn through my foot, which happens a lot because I walk barefoot. And it's inevitable. And I don't really have much of an immune system, so I do get prone to it's like you get a thorn and the body tries and rejects it. I've got a couple of thorns in my foot at the moment. In fact, I've got a thorn from moving those branches earlier that I'm going to have to wait till I get home. A piece of buffalo thorn that went into my foot. There's a squirrel. No, it wasn't a squirrel. It was a slender mongoose.
Yeah, but not a squirrel.
It was Mangovo, the slender mongoose. And they're very shy, very hard to catch them on camera because one only ever sees them darting across roads, or in this case along a road and back into the grass. The thing is, I've been barefoot most of my life in the bush, and so my feet are pretty hard underneath. I've got the sole under my foot, like an elephant's foot. And now they've got a lot of mud from being in the water and the mud earlier. So that's why I don't wear shoes, otherwise my shoes would get all wet and messed up. So it's easier to just wear feet. But more importantly than that, it is being in touch with the energy of the planet. It's feeling the energy of it's feeling the energy of the planet. For me it's therapeutic. You know what? It's this lower branch that always catches the antenna that I can never quite see, but you can just get it back around, but this time I managed to touch it perfectly. So thanks for the question, Torah. Torah sounds like a Sabra name. So North Carolina to Chicago. Okay, Vivian has a question. I'm going to pause. Can you see this beautiful moth? I'm scared that if I touch the leaf it's going to fly. They're not really very fast flying moths, but it's just an important thing that I want to teach you all. Oh, she's starting to flap her wings. Manual focus. There. One of its defense mechanisms is the fact that it's got coloration, that is what we would term aposematic coloring, using the white, the black, the orange. It's slightly metallic too. It's almost like a deep purple more than white. And this is a diurnal moth. Not all moths fly at night, and not all butterflies fly during the day. And there's a very, very fine line between what is a moth and what is a butterfly. But this is very clearly a moth. It's not shaped like a butterfly. It doesn't have the wings of a butterfly. The wind is blowing its wings a little bit. But it's known as a handmaiden. One of the handmaidens, and they're one of the winter moths that come out. And perhaps it's because the evenings are cool, and they've just managed to find this niche that it's warm enough during the day to be an active species during the day. And I'm not too sure of their larval host plant. This is the velvet combretum, and that it's on combretum molly. Yes, Molly's combretum. It's the velvet combretum. These leaves are very velvety, and it's possible that the combretums are its host plant, especially this one up ahead. These two large fruited combretums, because I've mostly only found them around combretums. Yeah, windy mic, because we've got the wind behind us. Coming from the north, it's unusual. There's a weather change happening. There's a cold front coming in again. We've had a very high pressure system, a nice high pressure system that's been here. Come onto my finger. There we go. It'd be nice if we had the lights. Yeah. Okay. Oh. Back on the same leaf. Bye. Thank you. The most well-known moth in the world. Right now. Very pretty little moths. You get different species of handmaidens, and they all got wonderful colouring, but they've also got that colouring that says to birds, don't even try and eat me, I'm not tasty. Possibly even poisonous. So Vivian was asking about warthog behavior. Hello Vivian. No, I got it. So Vivian was asking about warthog and their behavior. Since they run from the vehicles, is it that I'm getting old, thanks Brian. Yes, Brian's not getting old. He's quite right actually. I do get forgetful. Sometimes the question can be long, and by the time he's finished the end of the question, I've forgotten what the beginning of the question was, including the person's name who sent it. But Vivian was asking, oh, I forgot, what was that, Brian? No, I'm only joking. The vehicle, seems that warthogs run from the vehicle because it's a... No, wait. Okay, so our elephants. Okay, I don't know, really, I might have to go up Mangwa Road, and that takes us up onto Central, and then we're way out of it. Keep looking. I wanted to show Mr. and Mrs. Tang some elephant. Show how they come and say hello to Aaron. Hope Mr. and Mrs. Tang are watching. Send an email if you are to say hello. from Johannesburg. And so, Vivian was asking, since they run away from the vehicles and they're very shy with the vehicles, how would they react on foot? And Vivian, they would react even quicker on foot. They saw a human on foot, they would run. But this is where my standard reply comes in. It depends, because in some places warthog are so used to people, in some places warthog are quite comfortable with people, and so on foot or in a vehicle it makes no difference, they don't move at all. And I think it's these warthogs down here that don't really get much in the way of vehicle activity. There's not much that in the world that, apart from the fact that the bush is very, very thick, the grasses are very long at the moment. They would react pretty much the same way, these warthog, with me on foot. In fact, maybe next time we see warthog, I'll show you. If we can get them to stand still with the vehicle, I'll show you. I'll get out of the vehicle and they'll run even harder, they'll run even more. Because a human on foot is far worse than a vehicle, even though it might be smaller. You see, animals don't see size as an issue when it comes to strength. And we have some fresh leopard tracks. Animals don't see size as an issue of strength. This is why elephants can be, I wouldn't say intimidating, although it's a word I have in mind. Elephants, until they know that they're bigger and stronger, or that they're stronger, or that they can, they don't really know how to react to us. I mean, I'm sure we have a reputation amongst elephants after many, many, many years of being persecuted by us. Interesting leopard tracks coming up from the river. I think these are the same tracks they had here up north this morning. Thomas, come in. Chameleon, come. Did you see where there were lalapanzi in the road? Okay, thanks. Short grass area. Reminds me of Drakensberg Drive. And what could I eat? I spent many, many nights in the bush. One night's different to sort of being stuck in the bush for multiple nights. I'm assuming, Annalie, that I'm not allowed to bring a cooler box with a steak and some potatoes wrapped in tin foil or aluminum foil. Should I say aluminium? Because aluminum is wrong. It's actually pronounced aluminium. All of those of you in North America. Get that debate going. So I'm assuming I can't bring a cooler box with the steak and potato and a couple of beers and things. I'm not allowed to do that. So excuse me a second, I'll listen to the radio. Australia because it's a necessity. Come in, Brad. I wonder if that's Janet calling Brad. Keeping the animals away, well, I guess you could make a fire. It's not necessarily going to keep animals away. In fact, in some cases it might bring the likes of hyena or sometimes lion will come and have a look. Animals are very well aware of fire. They're very well aware whether a fire is contained or whether it is a potential threat in a bushfire, brush fire. I've done a lot of overnight walking safaris in the bush, but then I've always had food that we take with us and we cook. I'm assuming that your question is about what if it was an unprepared overnight. If it was just one night, I'd starve until the next day because I don't want to kill anything and eat it. There are a few things that are still fruiting. There are still a few things that one can find to eat here, even though we're going into the dry season. I noticed that the jackalberries are fruiting at the moment, although they're not really ripe, but it's a little bit of nutrition. The false marulas are just coming out of their fruiting season. Good vitamin C there. The worry bushes, the magic worries, are in fruit. Yeah, in fact, right here are some worry fruits. Yes. Yeah, some. I think this is the blue worry, or the metal worry. The magic worry. It doesn't have the wavy leaf of the magic worry that's hanging over us, providing the shade. But at the moment, the green pigeons are relishing these fruits. You see the darker ones are a little bit more ripe in the green. One would have to eat a lot of them because the flesh of the fruit isn't very, very thick, but a very large seed. And it's just a very little bit of flesh. It's just enough to entice a bird to come and eat it and take the seed away and drop it elsewhere so that it can grow away from the parent tree. There are some leaves that one could eat. There's some roots that one could eat. The most tasteful, or the tastiest, sweetest root of all is a root of a plant known as Commiphora neglecta. Something one mustn't neglect to remember. Commiphora neglecta is also known as the sweet root corkwood. Okay. The commiferas are actually part of the myrrh family, the Myrraceae. And of course they are well known. The myrrh family is very well known for its scented bark and resin. Frankincense and myrrh. I don't know if frankincense is part of the myrrh family, but good old Yuletide frankincense and myrrh and the same family as the corkwood, not to be confused with the actual cork bark of the cork oak, which is an acer, and we don't have any, not acers are not, it's quercus. Acers are maples. My apologies. Acers are maples. I don't know why they call a computer after a maple tree. Why they call maple trees after a computer? No, Acer is the genus for all the maples. Oh, Canada. Canada. You're doing a fantastic job. Well played, dude. So the quercus, which is the cork oak, different to our. Okay, it's different to our corkwoods, or rather. Yeah. Thanks, Brian. So the sweet root corkwood, if you dig up the roots, and I hate doing that because they're not really big trees, they're really small little things, and they're so few and far between, probably because the elephants love them as well. They taste sugar cane, so natural. But don't ever confuse the corkwood with the cork bush, because we also have something called the cork bush. That's known as Mandulia sericea. Again, back in the 80s, when I first learnt about the Mandulia sericea, I remember learning the name by thinking of Mandela. But we had some rather strong political issues. There was a time when when Mandela was still in prison, before he was released and he became our president, and when we were still in our regime and all, there was some political problems with mentioning his name. Oh well, every country went through it, or is even still going through it. Elephants giving me the runaround. What we can do, head back down to Dacre Road, come up down towards the river. Maybe they actually look at the Plum Dam later. So I hope that it at least somehow answers the question. No, one night is not too bad to have to spend in the bush. It's a different story if you're really, really remote and you're really stuck and you have to find your way out of an area to civilization. You've got miles and miles and miles to cover. Now, I'm looking at a ridge way down in the south, and there are houses and cell phone towers, and that's right outside the reserve. As the crow flies, it's probably only about 5 miles, maybe a bit more. But it's rural Africa, right outside the reserve, so you don't have to go very far from where we are now. It's easy to follow these roads. If I was stuck in a place like this, I'd just walk back to camp, I'd leave the vehicle. If it was a place like the deepest, remotest part of the Selous Game Reserve or the Ruaha National Park up in East Africa, places I was stuck in the heart of the Okavango Delta, different story. But here one doesn't have to go far to find your way out. And the network of roads that exists, it's easy to see, like this road for example, it's a very well travelled road. You just have to follow it in one or either direction. You're going to eventually come across either a game lodge or a camp, or you don't even have to walk through the bush, just follow a road. Walking at night is not a very good thing. In fact, walking at night is not advisable. I wouldn't even advise walking during the day unless you know what you're doing. It's not a very safe thing to do, because when you, much like if I had to go for a walk in the city, I would become a target for the predators in the city. The predators in the bush will also target an individual who seems to not know what they're doing. The way you look, the way you walk, the way you move around. That looked like very fresh leopard dung. We'll see if we can find some leopard tracks down here. To that other dam, one more dam. Okay, some question. Gale in the USA. A little bit more specific than that, Gale. USA is quite big. But Gale, Rhode Island. Thank you, Brian. Alright, Rhode Island, the USA. Hello, Gail. Up in Rhode Island. How often do we come across snakes? Hardly ever, if ever. Some of the long-time viewers will tell you, boy, it's difficult to see a snake. We see their tracks. You hear birds shouting at different. I live in the bush, so I snake. I see snakes quite often. at home because I have individuals that live around my house and they're territorial and I see them from time to time. So it's kind of a different matter entirely. But driving around we see their tracks. We're not likely to see snakes as much as I would love to, because I know there are people that are interested. It's just one of those things that sadly they're very, very shy creatures. You know, when you don't have arms and legs and all you've got is a bite. If that. I wonder, should we take Shesha North? Let's take Shesha North. Quite a nice road, goes through that little rocky section. Then we'll come around to the dam. Let's come back down this way. Leopards had a kill around here. In fact, just behind me in that block of bush 2 nights ago. They couldn't be found, but they know there was a kill there because they saw the drag mark. So Gail also wanted to know what type of snakes do we have, poisonous or non-poisonous. Actually, Gail, we don't have any poisonous snakes. We have a number of venomous snakes. This, by the way, this lovely little silver thing, I was talking about Mandolia. This little plant, known as Mandolia sericea. And it's called sericea the same as this little plant next to it is known as Terminalia sericea, because sericea refers to the silver leaves. And that Mandolia sericea, here's another one on the left. These little Mandolias are the cork bush, not cork wood, like the coniferas. Coniferas are cork wood. Cork bush snake can get confusing with common names. That's why we use botanical names. Now, I remember my friend Herman in Cape Town. A lot of you might remember Herman. Sent a post about a dictionary explanation about poisonous, and I will still dispute it. Poison is something you eat, you ingest. Venom is something that gets into your bloodstream through a wound or a bite, something like that. Or venom can even be absorbed through the skin. Then I have poison maybe. That gets a little bit obscure when it starts coming down to whether something can be absorbed by the skin or not. But venomous snakes we do have. We do have some of the world's most venomous snakes. Of course, the most venomous is one of the sea snakes, and no chance of finding a sea snake out here. We're a little bit far from the ocean. But our other venomous snakes that we have, the most venomous snakes are things like the worm slug. It doesn't really have an English name. It's an Afrikaans name, but it has been adopted by other languages. Boom, or in an American way you would say boom slang, but in the pronunciation is worm slug. Boom slang. There is the cousin or kind of a similar snake to the boom slang, which is the vine or twig snake, which is highly venomous. Both of those are what we might term rear fang snakes, and they're both hemotoxic snakes, which means that the venom attacks your blood cells and you go into internal hemorrhaging, and it's a really painful way to go. But fortunately, not very easy for them to bite you, because both of them are very relaxed snakes, and it's wonderful. I've got both worm slug and vine snake that I see regularly around my house. I take even close-up photos of their face when I'm just a few inches away, as well as the fact that there's a kudu down there, as well as the fact that just recently my vine snake ate one of my baby striped-bellied sand snakes. I say mine because they live in my garden around my house. Me and my siblings and my parents. Okay. Semantics. Then of course there are the elapids. The elapids are the cobras. I'm just going to pause this discussion quickly because we have kudu that's actually letting us get a little bit closer than normal. I'm hoping she doesn't run away. The light is really pretty on her, and so there's this little gap that you... Is that good, Aaron? As soon as I switch off, she runs away. Her calf is there as well. Come on, friend. Did you at least get her a little bit? Or not? Yeah. Just before she ran. calf is still there. Yeah. Not a very young calf, it's just a sub-adult. Now the leopards are the cobras. There's a gap. There. Huh. She moves off.
Just because you go running, eh?
There's some more on the right, probably, but part of the same herd, making their way down this drainage line. Good vegetation, green grasses. This is beyond the spillway of the dam that we're going to visit. I'm going to go around to the western side of it, otherwise we're looking into the sun. It's a bit rocky here. So the leopards are the cobras, and it's not, although it's not really a cobra, but it does belong to the leopards, is the famous black mamba. And the black mamba is a different kind of venom. It is a neurotoxic venom. It's a type of venom that attacks your nervous system. So basically, these roads are just something else. So the nervous system collapses, your heart stops, your lungs stop, everything stops. So if you could survive, if you could get to an artificial heart and lung machine, or you can have artificial respiration and heart massage, CPR and stuff, long enough to get you to a machine, you should be able to survive. Hemotoxins, fortunately with the hemotoxins like the wormsung and the vine snake, it takes a long time to act, so you do have time to get out. You have hours in fact before you start hemorrhaging, and so you can get to care. Of course the caveat there is that there are only 2, maybe 3 hospitals in the entire country that carry an antivenom for a hemotoxic bite. You have to get to one of them. The cobras are mostly, like the black mamba, mostly neurotoxic venoms, except for the Mozambique spitting cobra. Neurotoxin wouldn't work for a spitting cobra because it can't act on, it needs to get into the bloodstream, and just being on the eyeball wouldn't work. So this Mozambique spitting cobra is actually a cytotoxic venom, which means that it is tissue destroying. It attacks your cells, your skin, your tissue destroying. Necrosis sets in pretty quickly, and of course the result of that is gangrene and amputation. The other snakes that are also cytotoxic are the adders, the puff adder, which is like the equivalent of the American rattler. It's similar in that it looks similar, but it doesn't have the rattle on the tail. Then there's the night adder and the berg adder and the snout adder, and the most important of all, which we don't get here, but you get it in the forests along the east coast, the gaboon viper. Adders and vipers, same kind of family. But they make up such a small percentage of the snakes that we get, that most of the snakes that you're likely to see are harmless, and they're really wonderful creatures. They have such incredible lives. And I could spend the rest of the drive just talking about the non-venomous snakes, but we're not going to do that because we're coming up on the dam and we are going to move on to the next question, please. I hope that answers your question, by the way. Hello, Ellen. Nice to hear from you. Ellen, Decatur in Illinois. Ellen used to join us with her class at school. We are now closed. But Ellen wants to know if we have vervet monkeys and baboons. Asking why we don't see them. Is it because they're shy? We do. We have, in fact, we have a troop of vervet monkeys around camp. There are 2 troops of baboon that live along the river. 2 quite big troops of baboons, so they live along the river. I know where both of them sleep. Both of them have their very not typical but well used sleeping trees where they spend the night. But they are very shy. There's an unfortunate status quo that exists between the primates in Africa. That being us humans and the likes of vervet monkeys and baboons. And that is because they can be a little bit naughty, because they raid our houses and steal our food and make a mess. Not their fault. I'm going to just stop and listen. Sorry, it's a bad angle, Aaron. But yes, they're just very, very shy. And they don't like us humans. So we don't get to see them much. We did get some baboon on camera the other day. The water's dropped about 2 inches since I was last here 2 days ago, or yesterday. Maybe 2 inches. I still want to find this crocodilian that lives here. I've only seen it once, but I know that it's here. It's way up in the back there. One that's here. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I've only seen the one here. There might be more. Quite a strong wind coming in from the north, and that tells me that there's weather change. And this wonderful high pressure system that we've had over us over the last couple of days that has left really nice temperatures in its wake, I think it's about to come to an end, because this northerly wind is 180 degrees. Normally we get a wind coming in from the southeast, and that's our prevailing wind. And oh yes, come on. They come now. Going into the dry season, we're going to see these buffalo living around this dam. They're not going to want to go much further, so I'll go back a little bit. Let me just see his backside, really. We did have him drinking this morning. There's him and 2 bulls. We'll try and get some monkeys for you, Ellen. Kathy in Cleveland, Ohio. What time of the year, speaking of weather and things? Sorry, I'm just listening to the radio. If I pause like that, it's not because I'm suddenly wordless, or sometimes I'm important, but that's because I've got to listen to the radio. Not too important now, because I don't have a sighting to control. So the question is, best time of the year to visit for safari? Depends. Because different times of the year have different things to offer. And it also depends on whether you're going to go or to come back again and see a different time of the year. If it's going to be a once-off, once only, ever, it's a very difficult question to answer, because from a game viewing point of view, the end of the dry season is phenomenal. What we're looking at now is a wall of green bush. It's going to be a wall of twigs and sticks and very few leaves. The quarries will still have their leaves. Maybe the silver cluster leaf up at the back will have its leaves, and that jackalberry will still have its leaves. But most of these other trees will all lose their leaves in winter, and the grasses will go dry, and it'll be brown and stark. But the positive side to that is that it opens it up and it allows us to see deeper into the bush a lot better. But the other side of it also is that there are none of these little pans and ponds everywhere. There is only this permanent water in places like this. And a dam like this would have a lot more animals concentrated around it during the wet season. At the end of the dry season, towards, I'd say, September, October, going into November perhaps, if we don't have rain. So just before the first rains. They can fall in September or they can fall in November. But if you're going to come at the end of the dry season, you've got to remember it's going to look dry and brown and drab, and you're not going to see colour. There might be a flower or two. There are going to be no migrant birds. There's not going to be much colour, and it's going to be very, very dusty. On the other hand, coming in spring, when things are starting to come into leaf and bloom and blossom, well, that'll actually happen. Towards the end of the dry season, you do have a lot of things coming into bloom. Come to think of it. But once the rains start falling and a new flush of green comes out, that is really, really special, because spring to early summer, new green shoots everywhere, and the migrant birds are starting to come back. I can't help it. It's just the way the wind's blowing today. Somehow it seems to work better when it's a southerly wind. I can't block it with my hand if it makes any difference. Or we'll work on it. We'll have to put foam around it. I do, but then I've got to take off the tape and everything, and that's going to make a noise. So we'll work on it. We'll fix the mic. I'm going to put my hand and block it for now. Maybe we'll just get a kitchen sponge and cut a piece off of it and block it. What do you think? I'm going to square kitchen sponge, take a slice off of it, put it here. Might not. True. It's sponge. What can I say? Then of course you got summer, and there's nothing sweeter than the smell of rain and the smell of the dry earth, the dust settling. There's a special name for it. I forget. Maybe someone can look it up for me. There's a special name for the smell of the first rains and what the soil does, because essentially in the dry season the soils become somewhat hydrophobic, and it's only when the first rains fall that these oils are dissolved and the soil becomes absorbent again. It's got a lot to do with retaining moisture underground. I forget that term. Midsummer is great. You've got all the migrants, you've got flowers, you've got insects and spiders, and the world is just so alive. You've got bunny animals. But once again, the bush is getting thick, and it's harder to see things. The rains have started. There are pools and puddles everywhere, and the animals are starting to get spread out. And then, of course, you get the end of summer, which is now going into winter, and the bush is very, very thick. It's hard to see animals. Haven't started losing their leaves yet. The migrants have gone. So it's not an easy question to answer. I would have to, if I was going to advise people about visiting Africa, coming on safari, I would have to have a much more intimate discussion about what it is they want to experience from their safari, and then send them to an area where they might be able to experience that. And I'm really happy to do that. At a price? No, only joking. If you're a wild earth deer, no price at all. But I'd need to know what it is that you want, because I wouldn't like to advise you to come at the end of the dry season and you get here and nothing is as you expected because it's the wrong time of the year for you. So, difficult one to answer. For me, there's never a best time. For me, I live in the bush all year round. I love the transition in the seasons. I love each season for its own merit. And there's a wonderful old saying, what you make up on the swings, you lose on the roundabouts, or the other way around, whatever, however it goes. But that's very much the way it works here. What you lose out on in winter, you make up for because you have dry bush and animals concentrating around water holes. So, question that needs a little bit more input from an individual who wants to come to Africa. And anything further? Susan from Arkansas. Are there any hyenas in our area? Yes, there are. We find hyena tracks every day. We haven't yet found a hyena. Now, you see, this is another thing. In summer, when it's really, really hot, you might find hyenas wallowing in some of these mud wallows during the day, lying up in the shade. There is a hyena den way up in the north. I hear the guys talking about it. There are a bunch of cubs, youngsters up there. We can't get there. We can, but then I can't go live because unfortunately it's out of our signal range. The Thornybush is quite big. Our signal range is only about I'd say maybe about a tenth of the size of Thornybush. So what you're seeing when we're driving around is only sort of the southern region of the nature reserve, game reserve, park, the area. We're working on fixing that, I promise we are. Working on it. I see hyena tracks every day. Occasionally I've seen hyena when we're on our way back in the evenings or as we start out in the mornings, and I've seen one or two hyena when we've been off air, but they have been quite shy and they disappear quite quickly. I do want to investigate a possible hyena den along that southern fence line near our gates, but it's kind of difficult because I don't want to drive there with the camera because it's a longer fence and it's just not very pretty because it's a fence. Of course the reality is this is a self-contained game reserve that does have fences, but I know it's a very, very long road and it's very, very thick and it's very, very bumpy. And I'd rather go there at some point when I can to make sure that there is a hyena den and then maybe we can do something about it. But I don't want to just waste time. But I don't want to spend the time and then there isn't one. So here's a good place for a hyena den. There's an old termite mound. You can see that hole just there. It's probably an old aardvark burrow. Back through there. Look down the drain, down the cut line. But I hope we'll be able to find you hyena one of these days. Okay, we're going to head straight down south. These alleys across this cut line. Recording. That was good life. This is Africa. Dolly, Ontario. Hello, Canada. Nice to hear from Canada. Well, I'm sure we probably have someone else, a couple of other people in Canada. Maybe Lisa and Flick, and Flick is Fabian, and Janet might be watching. Anyways, hello Canada. Welcome to our drive this afternoon. Nobody wants to know, are there any, although this is wildlife, this is a game reserve of wild animals, do they ever become friendly? Not really. I mean, the elephants here are super friendly. In seventh heaven. I could live here just for the elephants, for nothing else, because of the way the elephants come right up to me and look me in the eye. It's so amazing. It's really wonderful. But no, one can't mistake animals' indifference to the vehicle as being friendly. I think that would be a grave mistake, to think that just because they come to the vehicle. I've had lion, leopard, elephant, rhino. I've had, in my past, I'm talking about, in different parts of Africa, come right up. I've had lion brush against the vehicle. I've had leopard put their paws up against the door. I've had really, really close encounters, but it's not friendly. It's inquisitive or it's indifference. Mostly it's indifference. And under those circumstances, it's important to just sit still and not move too much. Let the animal do what it's doing. But one can't. It's wrong in my books, really, to sort of bridge that little gap, to touch that elephant, or to go that one step further. For me, it's important to maintain this invisible barrier that them and us, and that is because I don't want an animal to get used to humans based on my behavior, and then the next human it sees thinks that, oh, here's a human, is friendly, and meanwhile that human has ill intention, like a poacher or something. It breaks my heart to think about some of the elephants that I got friendly with, for want of a better word, Tanzania, and to think that the amount of poaching and the rate at which elephants are being killed in East, Central and West Africa, to think that those elephants that took me years to get to calm down with me in the vehicle were probably the very elephants that were the first elephants to be taken out when the poaching resumed a few years ago. And it's why I'll try and maintain my distance. Really, it's a hard thing to live with. I think that these were elephants that had been affected by poaching for so many years. And when I got to Selous, they were so scared of human beings. This is Selous in Tanzania, southern Tanzania. The biggest game reserves in the world. I think Banff, or one of your Canadian parks, is only bigger than Selous in size. And these elephants, except for some of the bulls that used to come into camp and live with me in the camp, I mean live with me, 24 hours a day, I had the same bulls in camp all the time. They were one of the crew, they were one of the staff. It was like the guests were coming to camp, and this is Fidile, our barman, and these are our chefs, this is our elephant, and these are our guides. But the other elephants, the family groups, the matriarchs and their children, would run, or they'd get very aggressive with the vehicles, and you just had to leave them be, leave them with a message that you don't mean them any harm, and hope that they would calm down in time, which they did. And it was my behavior that made them calm down, and now I've got to live with the memory, or with the conscience that the very act of me calming these elephants down for tourism has now resulted in those very elephants being the first, or they're not on the scene anymore, because at a rate of 40 to 50 elephants a day, even today, 40 or 50 elephants have been killed in East Africa. There are probably just as many elephants being killed in West Africa today, while the rest of the world fights over interest rates and whether you got the latest iPad or iPhone. It's sad. Very sad. Sorry. Soft spot. So friendliness is, for me, is discouraged. I don't want animals to become friendly. I want them to get to know the vehicles, that they're not a threat. That's fine, although that in itself is just as bad. Fortunately, the poaching here is pretty well controlled. We have a company, an independent company that is contracted to do anti-poaching. They are quite effective. And the other fact that comes into it is that there are a bunch of game lodges, all part of the Thornybush collection of lodges, and you can look that up on the web. There are a number of lodges that belong to the Thornybush collection as such, and there are a number of vehicles out on game drives all day, every day, and it's that very fact that make it difficult for poachers to operate in a place like this, because they're not going to come to a place where the roads have got regular traffic on them, and it's easy to see just by the tracks of the vehicles how frequently vehicles travel these roads. But it doesn't mean we're immune from it. Somehow the world has got to put pressure on governments to stop this nonsense, because it is the governments who can stop it. Our South African government, governments of Vietnam, Taiwan, China, Yemen. Yes, please, more questions. Let's get off the subject. Although I could. Yes. What have you got for me, Brian? Ask. Hello, Flick. Speaking of Flick in Canada, this is Quebec. Petrichor. What? Spell it for me. Mary, Ellen, Jane, and John, and Petrichor. Yes, that's the smell of the rain. Thank you very much for that. 4 or 5 people coming through with that. Mary was one of them. Mary Joseph. But Fabienne in Quebec, Flick wants a sunset. I bet she'd probably want it with elephants too, if I know Flick. I don't know if we're going to get to the sunset. We can try. We'll try. There's no cloud, it's just, and it's getting fairly close, funny enough. Brian, also just monitor my BBs here going through, not this dip, but maybe the bottom dip with the big jackalberries. I know we might lose me. You might lose me there. Maybe false marula. Really beautiful light. Maybe we can find something in it. Okay, thank you. I'll try for a sunset, Fabienne. And your friend Ruth in Florida. RMR. Back to Tora and Charlotte, North Carolina. Are there any hippo? Yes, there are. And I'm hoping that one of these days when we get to that dam that we've just been at, we're going to find hippo there, because they have been there and they do their rounds around all the other dams. We've seen hippo in a couple of other dams, but they are dams out of range of the signal area. So we've got to wait until hippo come to this dam called Langwan Dam. Here, my elephant. Not my elephant. The elephant. Where are you going, Ellie? Just the bull heading down there. Hyena tracks heading up, but these are not very fresh hyena tracks. Nobody's driven here today. Go down into the dip and see them down there. I know, Aaron, I think he was hoping. I was also hoping for the Ellies. Although we've had the last few days just elephants. It's just type of axis. You could find some tracks of other smaller, furrier, spotted cats type animals. Okay. Be up on that high ground to find the sunset. Okay. Bev in Australia, very, very good question. I wish I had an answer for it. What could the general public do to stop poaching? Yeah. That's fresh leopard tracks and fresh leopard dung. I'm just gonna poke this dung with a stick. I want to see how fresh it is. That's quite interesting. I mean, it's from this morning. It's been in the shade all afternoon. It was probably in the sun earlier today. But it's leopard dung from a kill, from the end of a kill. There's bits of bone, there's hair. Of course, the darkness of it being almost black tells me that it's there's a fair amount of blood, but it's mostly the end of the kill when the leopard is eating the likes of skin and bone and hair. I wonder if it had a kill in one of these jackalberries and nobody came to check. But he's gone north, his tracks head north. I might have to turn around and head back north. I'm wondering where he would have gone. Whether he headed east or west after going north. I wonder what he would have, where he had this kill. So is that Bonnie in Cape Town? Bonnie in Cape Town, asking if drones are used to find wildlife. No, I only know one person. Okay, leopard has gone to the toilet. This way. Yeah, now I'm in this deep dip. Stand by, I need the other radio. If only these guys would give me a break. Any station? It's impossible. Impossible to get a word in. Any station down south near Bushwillow Central? Alright, never mind. Okay, that one is. It's impossible. Absolutely impossible. There aren't even that many sightings. It's talking such nonsense. Anyway, I'll follow up what I can. This leopard's been up and down here. Tracks go both ways. Now I don't have his tracks again, other than older tracks heading south. I mean, heading north, when he could have probably been coming back to the kill. There is a pan up there somewhere called Zebra Pan. He might have gone to drink, and then he went back to his kill. So let's head up this way. Might still get signal. Might also get a sunset for foot. And might be able to see if there are any tracks or anything. Hannah's coming. If he's driving at all. Okay, I don't know if you want to monitor some BBs here. I don't know when it's getting bad. This pan, this is Zebra Pan, but there's no water in there. It's dried up already. Leopard didn't walk here, it doesn't look like it. The baboons did. That's something about that's about the best we're going to get for a sunset, I think. Maybe go a little bit further. Okay, now this leopard didn't come here, but we're just going to head up here for sunset and head back down to Central Road and elephant tracks too. This could be where they came. That's why they weren't anywhere where I was looking for them earlier. This could be them. This could be they. They, them. Them tracky doing. Far out to the west. Beautiful look at the purple mountains here. But we just need to get to higher ground. Be able to see that a little bit better. No. See, we've got a ridge. I can never get to the top of that far ridge. So, for all of you wanting a bit of an African sunset, I'm afraid there aren't many places here where we can get a good sunset and a good view of the west. There are a few places where in summer it would be wonderful because one can see to the southeast, or rather the southwest, a lot better. But you see here, we've got that ridge far in the west that's obscuring the mountains and the sun. And this is rather typical of a winter or a dry season sunset or dry season sky at this time of the day. Not a cloud to be seen, so you don't get the cloud painting the sky at all. But what we will get when the dust starts building up, and of course the smoke from the rural areas, it will be red instead of orange. It will go very red. But with the sunset and elephant tracks, go a little bit forward, we might see some better colour in the sky in a while. Let's just go and see how far these elephants have got. I don't think they must be much further than somewhere down up this road. They're hanging around the road. They've gone deep into the bush. It's a different matter. But it's quite a deep drainage line to our right. And so far they're all sticking to the road. And my guess is that they're doing a big loop here and then they're going to go back to the river tomorrow and further upstream from where we've been seeing them. And there they were in that mud hours ago. Generally they don't move very fast because they're feeding while they're moving. This is quite far from River Lodge where they were earlier today. If it's the same herd, I'm guessing it's a southwester. Or is it southeaster? One of the two. I think it's southwester. This way. Some of them walking on the road, so they're still here. There's only one individual now that's been walking on the road. One in there. No, no more elephant on the road. What is that? Is that a peacock or an elephant leg? This is a road that heads west up here. Might be up on the ridge. Ingwe Mkonzo, Madola Ingwe and Matimba on Central Cut Line heading south to south of Bacon Road. Not following up at the moment. I need a road to go in there and there isn't one. It does. Okay. Great, thanks. Further west. Probably because they're going to double back to the river. Take this cut line and see if there aren't maybe visible. Fresh buffalo down on traffic. close to the next one now. Might lose signal now because I'm going other side of the bridge. Wow, look at that mountain. Like we suddenly come so much closer to it. Let's go back to this again and I'll stop and listen. See if we can hear any trees breaking. And put a jersey on. Wear the top long sleeve t-shirt thing. Sun goes, temperature drops.
Sun goes down.
And another day.
Yeah. It's getting quite cold, eh?
Yeah.
My eyes are burning.
Really? I must give you, I've got a pair of clear safety goggles in my landy. That will help it, just for this last bit when it's starting to get cool.
I'm wearing my sunglasses now.
Yeah, now I'll give you some clear safety glasses. That'll also stop. Okay, shall we move?
Let's go.
We haven't got much light left. Piece of timber. Brian, we're down into nearly facing it, but it should be getting me back now. Okay, so it sounds like we're coming back. These elephants have got too far west, so my guess is they're not going to go very far west because the western boundary of that part of Thornybush is not too far behind us. But of course, you can't go too far west because I lose you, you lose me. So we're heading east again, going back into signal range. And my guess is these elephants will head south. When they go south, there's a patch of Thornybush directly to the west. It's a property known as Waterbuck, and they might have gone into there, and then they'll come around the side. Get back to the river, I suppose, maybe tomorrow, another day. What's he doing? Okay, we're back on good BBs. Got it? Good BBs. Yeah. Decibel level is high. See, they came through here, these Ellies. Yeah. This is where it get a bit tricky. Where are we going to go? Down here to the river. Or back there to Central Cutline. Get a car down here. Where we go. So, maybe we better go back up Central, back to where we were. Well, we have to get fine, so it should be coming back and be more stable. You see where these elephant went. I went a little bit too far west and got out a signal. Just didn't find them. See any tracks crossing a road in the south, and it might actually still be in a big block I went around, and that block took me a few minutes to get around it. When I mean block, like an area of bush that's surrounded by roads. It's not like a city. These are irregular shaped areas. So head back east. And hope we can find something in the minutes today. He hasn't moved that after all, but far in to see her. He was yapping here. No, that young earlier. back. Is that good? Moving. Getting a bit dark. Chilly wind. I wonder if she was that young giraffe that was with the wildebeest and zebra a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. Yeah. Over a year. Well, we don't know if it's alone. A good question though. But we can't see who's in there. And giraffe could be quite far apart from each other but still be together. How about a little bit? Okay, copy. No last question. A little bit cool. Okay. Are we going to bottom here because that's where the river is for this part? It's time to say goodbye. Breaking up there. Funny because there's camp. Yeah. We're kind of almost facing back. So, thanks everyone. It's been a wonderful Saturday afternoon for us. And thanks Aaron. Thanks Brian NFC. And thank you all for watching. I hope you're going to join us Sunday morning, my Sunday morning, 6:30 Central African time. I hope you'll be around to see what we can find for you. And thanks for all the questions. Been great exploring different avenues this afternoon. Hope I managed to answer them sufficiently. My name is Mark, and this has been Wild Earth, Thornybush Game Reserve. Bye bye everyone.
Cheers.